film, not just a press kit, but how do you take the elements that you as a filmmaker, producers, directors have generated in the process of making the film that best express the tone, its qualities, its sexiness, its thrill, and you know, put that in something that is something you could hold on to or send digitally. So when we say festival kit, we're thinking about it as an information package and what to include in that. But before we get going, I'd like to ask Michael and Ram to introduce themselves a little bit. You know, their background. You read something in the, you know, in the booklet, but let's hear from them.
I'm Michael Werner. I used to be a partner in a very well-known international distribution company called Fortissimo Films. Over the years, we probably handled around 350 to 400 films. But I'm here to help and convey some of the information and knowledge that I have.
And Michael's been coming to the Film Bazaar for years and years and years, so he's really familiar with the Indian scene as well.
Hi guys, I'm Ram Reddy. I'm a filmmaker from Bangalore, and I've made one film so far. It's called Titi, and I had the film in the Film Bazaar in 2014, and since then I've sort of been a Film Bazaar baby, and I kind of saw the big bad world here for the first time, learned a lot, and I've been returning in different capacities, and we took the film to Locarno for its premiere. And then traveled all over the world in festivals. We also released the film and ran for nearly 100 days. In Karnataka, we got a 2-week release nationally, and then we sold worldwide rights to Netflix. So we managed to tick all those boxes. So I've just been through that process, and I'm now working on my second film. So.
Thanks, Ram. Our case study. One of the things we're also thinking about is like stepping back just from the assumption that you've made a film, it should go to film festivals. Michael, I'd like to ask you, what kind of a film is going to find a festival life? And of course there are different levels of festivals. There's Cannes, there's Berlin, you know, the most dreamed of ones. But then there are many, many other festivals. You have the worldwide circuit of Indian film festivals that really only play work from the subcontinent. So when you're making the film, before you get to going, okay, I'm going to make a festival kit, what should a filmmaker be thinking about in terms of this massive sort of strata of different festival possibilities?
Maybe let's take it back half a step or even a whole step. I think when you're conceptualizing your film, when you're shooting your film, whether you're the filmmaker or you're the producer, you really need to already begin to think about the strategy, the marketing. You know, who's the message for? What's the film about? Who do you want the film to be attractive to? So we were talking about it. I mean, it's really critical to have a photographer on set. You know, a lot of people, when you start cutting the budget, you say, we don't need a photographer. My sister, my boyfriend, my brother, they'll take the pictures and we'll use those, or we'll take them out of the frames of the film. And marketing of a film is so critical to the success of a film. You really want to have as many elements to work with as you can. So that's one thing. Think about creating elements and images that you can use later, and then you have a lot more freedom and flexibility. It's important when you have the film, you try to start to design some kind of strategy, like where can you bring the film to? So you went to Locarno. Maybe Locarno was your first choice. Maybe it wasn't your first choice. You know, so you need to have a strategy that says this is a film that goes to international festivals. Maybe it's an A-level festival, or it's a B festival, or we're going to start regionally. But you need to get some people on your team that have that background and have that experience that can help you.
Locarno is, I think, a great launch for authored films, like artistic films. But Locarno doesn't have a big market attached, as Berlin does, or as Cannes does. How did you, when you got Locarno as your premiere, use that platform for the artistic life of the film, the recognition of the film, and how did you translate that into bringing it to the market?
Yeah, so I think we got really lucky at Locarno. One thing about Locarno that attracted me to it is that it was a very, I was quite attracted to the fact that it was a very pure celebration of cinema, and it was really content driven, and partly that is because there's no strong market presence, perhaps, in a way. So that was really exciting, to go into a place that really is very just about cinema. What helped us with our sort of marketing of the film was the fact that we won. And because
that always helps.
I mean,
Win an award.
Sorry.
Number one.
Rule number one: win an award.
That's actually it's true in a way that if you win an award in a festival that generates a lot of organic press, a huge amount. If you win one of these festivals, any festival, your press in India is going to just go all over the country immediately, which is very good. And it also then helps you get into other markets after that, perhaps. So winning an award helps a lot because it really helps push it out there. So Locarno hadn't had an Indian film for 8 years. That was another reason why we wanted to go there. And they were really passionate about the project. So this is another thing. You need to also go to a fest that really cares about your film. So it's not, these are people who are programming it, these are people who are running the festivals. If they love your film, that means a lot. It means a lot in terms of which day they're going to program it on. So we got programmed on a morning or on a Saturday, and then our second screening was on a Sunday. We got both primetime slots, which makes a huge difference. So if you go to Cannes and you're programmed late, on the last day, for example, that's a problem. So there are a lot of factors that go into this choice.
So let me ask a quick question. How did you, I mean, that's very, you've articulated in a very concise way all the issues that one has when you go to when you try to go to a festival, or you try to pick a festival and then you try to pick a date and you try to, how did you come to all that knowledge? Is that self-discovery, or did you hire somebody, or?
Film Bazaar actually was where I got all that knowledge. So someone said woohoo, but yes, woohoo. Seriously, I mean, Dipti, for example, who helped bring the film to Film Bazaar, helped a lot, and everyone, all the mentors from the Work in Progress Lab, one of whom became my producer on Dipti and now is my producer on my second film. I mean, they know everything. So the knowledge base that's available in Film Bazaar is as good as you'll get anywhere in the world. So it's up to us to make use of it. So I learned all that from people around here.
Specifically, you had a very Indian film, rural, non-actors. When you were first introducing it, I'm getting back to the information that you gathered around the piece. What were some of the key elements that you identified at that first Film Bazaar Work in Progress that were the selling points of the film that you then added to your press kit or information package? With it?
Yeah, many things, like how to cut the trailer, for example. We have very different ideas of trailer cutting in India and abroad. Very simple things like the length, much shorter and more. The aesthetic of the trailers are very different, but it has to be like, here it can be 2.5, 3 minutes, 3.5. You see all kinds of long trailers. People don't have time internationally. There are too many films. You need to know you're going into a market with like hundreds of films. And thousands of films, exactly. Especially the market will have thousands and the programmed films will be in the hundreds. Now, we're also going to an audience which are going to watch 3 or 4 films a day. It's not an audience that picks that one film on Friday night, you know, so the whole market, and Michael we were discussing earlier, he was just saying that the market in these festivals is partially the audience, but it's really the distributors and buyers. You know?
Yeah, so what we were...
Tell us about those creatures, the distributors, the buyers, and the programming animals.
So, you know, a lot of you maybe think that, you know, for example, if you go to a multiplex, there's many posters up, and you look at those posters and you make a decision, oh, I'm interested, I'm going to see that film. So that's the audience of the general public, right? But for us as film sales agents or producers, that's not really your initial audience. That's way in the future after you have won an award at a festival and you've sold the film around the world. That's a different audience. Your audience is the 800 or 1,000 delegates who are territorial buyers, who are festival programmers. And those people are we see the same faces over and over again. They're at Cannes, they're at Berlin, they're in Toronto, they're in Rotterdam, they're everywhere. And they're professional, and they know what they're looking for generally. And so you have to figure out what's the shortcut to get to those people. because they're the decision maker. They're the kind of gatekeeper that will eventually get your film into a cinema. And so you have to create something that connects with them, that makes them interested. Because as you said, they're watching if they're watching 4 films a day, they're not watching enough. You know, if you're at a market, you're watching 6 or 7 films. You're picking between 100 films that are available every 2 hours. And so they need to read something, whether it's in this festival kit or market kit. They need to see a poster. They need to hear something from friends that says, that's a film you should see instead of those other films that you potentially could see. And once those people get interested, then you get to start dealing with what's coming afterward and how do I get my film into a multiplex.
Just to add a tiny thing, apart from, of course, that's all important, the other 2 important groups of people who will be watching a film are critics, who may be present, and you really want a Variety, Hollywood Reporter, and Screen in these trade magazines to review your film, if I'm not mistaken, because buyers read those magazines, and you want them to have a good review. So that's on you to make that great film. That's about the film itself, but that's also one of the people you're catering to, and the other one is your jury. Because awards do make a difference, I think, so you're also catering. In that sense, these are the 3 main people, of course, buyers, distributors, but critics and the jury.
And when I said program animals, I really meant that. It's like a tribe, it's like a set of creatures who spend their lives in these dark spaces, watching movie after movie after movie after movie. It's a unique kind of human being who's a film programmer. And I think the kind of, Michael, Michael has brought some stuff with him from Fortissimo days. And these people that are the first port of call for your work, the buyers, the distributors, the programmers, they need their attention, they're being bombarded. And finding images particularly that are fresh, that say something, that there's a drama occurring. I so often see stills in the trade magazines which are just simply bland. It could be an amazing movie, but the images have been badly chosen. They may mean something to the filmmaker, but they're not speaking, that means something after you've seen the film. But you see the image first, and the image must draw you towards the film itself.
Okay, so one of the filmmakers that Fortissimo worked with repeatedly, and I'm still very close on a personal basis, is Wong Kar-wai. And Wong Kar-wai is, as I was explaining yesterday, besides being a brilliant and iconic filmmaker, he's also he has a great marketing mind, a great sense of visuality. And so he picks people around him like Christopher Doyle or William Chang to do the costume design and the production design. But we used to go into his office and there'd be 10,000 images that he would have taken from a film. And he would know of those 10,000 images which were the 60 or 70 or 80 that he wanted to work with. But again, so that goes back to the have a photographer. But if you remember the movie Ashes of Time, there's a whole bunch of stills. And then if you have a lot of money and you know that there's a very small buyer universe, you can create something like this is a book that he created for My Blueberry Nights that wasn't published. It was just he made 150 copies, and that's the press kit in a way. That's the festival kit, and the film was in Cannes, yeah. So that's one extreme.
And that's metal, that's aluminium cover. So this piece in itself, there are 150 of them. This is a collector's piece, which is why you've left it in a wrap. To be something like this, I remember they're classic kits that go out there, and if you have one, they're like, you put them on the internet, make a stack, but people really collect this kind of stuff, because that's like a massive, that in itself is just like a wow factor object. Makes you want to open it. I won't tear the plastic off, I promise.
Yeah, and the other, the thing that's changed over time is, of course, if it's Wong Kar-wai and he creates something and you're fortunate enough to get one of those, you're going to take that home. But we discovered over time as we started to, because Fortissimo was very famous for creating great press kits and great material, people after a while didn't want to take that stuff home anymore. Paper's heavy, excess baggage is heavy. They're running around Cannes or Berlin or Venice or Toronto, and they have hundreds of pieces of press material that they picked up during the course of the day, and they just don't want to deal with it. And so now everything's gone digital. For the most part, everything's gone digital. But you know, we used to do, this was an Egyptian film we handled called, it was in Egypt, it was called 678, but we called it Cairo 678, which was a bus number. And that's one of the last printed press kits that we did for DCMO. After that, we pretty much, then we went to Xerox copies, and then we went to digital files.
Ram, I think you spoke about the trailer, and we have I think, can we play the international trailer that I sent you guys earlier from Netflix? Let's have a look at that, and then you can talk about how you arrived at this, because you sort of generated the marketing and the information package around the film pretty much yourself. Let's have a look.
So since we don't have still photographers on set, since we don't plan, and we don't have money and other things, and we're trying to actually make the film great, like we're not really thinking about how to get it out there first. Hurdle is to make the film.
So what happened? You ended up without?
Right. So we ended up without any stills on set, or we tried a bit, but they weren't good enough. So what we all...
Pause. Point one, make it time and time again. Make sure you have great stills. Don't end up like Ram.
No. But if you do end up like me,
it's always a solution.
What we all kind of fell back on was doing illustrated posters or digital art in some kind. So Titi, so Killa was like that, Court was like that, and then Titi, we did something slightly different. We tried to do a tapestry poster, so a poster that was stitched, because the film is tapestry-like or tapestry-esque or whatever. So we tried to create some press out of the poster itself, and the process of making it. So it took 6 months to stitch. So we stitched Gatappa's face by hand, and then...
Who's we?
I mean, the poster designer. I didn't do anything actually. I was just sitting there saying, stitch it better. But yeah. So, but the challenge. So the poster ended up being. It went as the international poster of the day on Movie and certain other places. So we got press for the poster. We had some press done. So that's a good thing to generate. But that was the good stuff. The bad stuff is in certain markets, people thought it was an animation, which happens with these kind of things. If it's, and ours is such a character-oriented film, you really want to have those faces on, right? So we may have gone with a different approach if we had actually done good set photography, had some good portraits of the 4 generations. We would have actually put all 4 generations on there. So the key is to think about this early on.
Faces have images, which we're going to see now, but we can imagine that you had your graphic poster, and then when you're creating the kit like this, you have images of all your main characters. All this. Yeah, Michael?
I'll make one point. It's really critical to try to come up with a unified, singular image if you can. And while it's true that you maybe have a local image and then you might have an international image, it's important to conceptualize what the international image should be and could be. We had a picture years ago called Beautiful People that was very well received. It was 20 years ago, it was about the war in Bosnia. And I think the world had become overloaded with those kind of stories. And so we came up with a great image. It was an illustrated image. And we sold the film incredibly well. Every single territory ended up making their own poster. Nobody liked the poster we made. And consequently, the film unfortunately didn't work in too many territories. So the messaging is really critical. You have to either yourself or hire an expert who understands how to take that message that the filmmakers created and put it in a piece of art and bring it to the world.
Okay. Perfect segue to this. Thanks. If you could just... So this was the poster. We premiered the film in Toronto, and it went straight to BFI London as well. So it was in competition in both Toronto and BFI London. And being in competition because of this content was both essential for the film, but it also made it very attractive to the programmers for those competitions, because we were bringing a very, very hot, difficult topic into the market space, into the festival world, with a film that is actually really, really beautifully made. But they wanted this film in competition, because they wanted their competition to have this kind of a story at its heart. Can we see the next images? Just slowly so people see. This is so a full set of director's notes. This is a very nice image of the director. And again, you're seeing two beautiful young people who are in the movie are actually in love. You're not seeing sort of dark, I mean, so let's move on. Next one. And this is, we did a Q&A with Micah de Jong, the director, so it's like a prepared interview, but she gets to speak about how she arrived at the film, what motivated her to make it, how she worked on it. So this is like a useful thing. It's also, you know, people can pick quotes out of that if they want to. So you're giving them something in advance. Okay, next. This is a continuation, and here you have again this like beautiful girl, and she's an incredible actress. She was found at high school, and now she's studying drama, and she's become a movie star because of this role. But it's these faces that you don't want to take your eyes off. So it's an introduction to the characters, obviously the biography, the filmography, rather experienced, quite well-known Dutch director, known for having a festival films. Next page. This is the screenwriter, who happens to be the husband of the director as well, and he has an interesting filmography that people would recognize if they were in the industry. And then our actors. You then meet who they are, not the characters, but their names, a little bit of their background. Okay. This is sort of what we call boilerplate, the concrete information that every information package has to have. The producers, the investors. Okay, next. Here we have the specifications, the format, what's available on DCP, the co-production countries, what the languages are, its running time, sound. All of this stuff is boilerplate, but you know, make sure it's there. This is something about the background of the three production companies who also are noteworthy if you manage to read their credits as well. That means something because it means, oh, it's the company that gave us X, Y, and Z. That film that was in Cannes, that film was in Berlin. So you're using every element that you can draw on that makes the thing something to go, okay, got to see that one. This is the sales agent, and if you've got a sales agent, it's, you know, this again says, oh, it's Beta Cinema, who did The Lives of Others, you know, very famous film. So it's again adding a kind of curatorial voice to the machine, to the materials you're putting out there. It's saying, these people like this film. These producers who made that film made this one too. This sales agent chose to sell this film. You're adding a kind of curatorial value to each thing. And then, how do you find us? All of the people you want to find. We have a publicist, Stephen Raphael, working in Toronto, and we should come back and just talk about publicists after this. I think that's the final page. Let's see. Just clicking in. That's it. Okay.
I'll just say one thing. We're all living in a better, more environmentally friendly world. If this film had been coming to the world marketplace 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, 15 years ago, and you went to any of the major festivals, you would have to print 2,000 hard copies of that in English and 1,000 copies in French, or 2,000 copies in French if you went to Cannes, and 1,500 copies if you went to Venice. It was crazy. We would ship from Amsterdam thousands of pounds of printed material for these press kits. So now it's a much easier world. It's quicker, it's digital.
And you can be more ambitious. Like if you have a low budget film, you have a low marketing budget, you're not going to be able to do Delivery Nights, but you can digitally go bigger and wider, but don't go crazy. Like that was like 8, 10 pages, plenty. No way to stop.
That was a very good looking, I think that's very good. You did a great job.
Yeah, how to make terrorism, you know, it was really a tough job. But if you saw the images and you saw those faces, I hope it would be something you'd go, okay, this is going to be an interesting take on a difficult subject.
You wanted to talk about press agents.
Thank you. Publicists. How did you use them? Where are they most essential? In which markets? Like, I have an idea, but you tell us.
Okay, so that's another change in the world, but it used to be if you went to any of the top festivals, you would have to have an English publicist. Let's say you went to Cannes. You'd have to have an English publicist, not very inexpensive, and you'd have to have a French publicist. And hopefully they work together well. And hopefully it costs you less than $30,000 or $25,000 for the two of them. It was a very expensive, and still continues to be fairly expensive. But the ones who are really good make a huge difference. You know, they're fantastic.
Publicists, they're like superstars in the publicist world, and if you can get them to take on your film, not just be able to afford them. We have to go to Q&A, but I just want to say that a festival like Toronto, there's so many films, you really, really got to find those extra investors to spend the $3,500, $4,000 Canadian dollars, usually.
Right. So I want to say, Locarno is a great festival of discovery. You know, it's a wonderful festival. We have smaller artistic films. It is in the marketplace, but the people that they invite, the festival industry guests, they're amongst the top in the world. So it's great to go there. Congratulations.
It's very tailored when you're there with a publicist and a great sales agent. Now, let's have a quick Q&A. We started late, so any questions? Yeah. We have a microphone here, thanks.
Hi, I'm Jyoti. I have a very simple question. So, you know, you have a lot of sales agents, you have a lot of curators who are bombarded with different kinds of films and festival kits. So how do you get your festival kit to stand out? Like, what's going to make either of you open a festival kit because it's come to you digitally? What's going to make you want to do that? Is it a great publicist who's sending it to you? Is it, you know, I don't know, like if I'm a first-time director, for example, is it that there's a known director who's sending it to you and recommending, you know, go through this? But that's not always possible. So what would make you open a festival kit, or how do I make my festival kit stand out if it's all digital? Because we're back to square one.
How do you get them to click download?
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, again, it goes back to that issue of maybe having a publicist or just somehow word has gotten out through the I Institute or through other institutions that there's a great film that somebody's brought, that it's a film of discovery. Because, again, how do you get somebody to look at that if you're not a known director? All the festivals have these lists that get published before, the 20 top films to watch, the 50 top films to watch. Publicists generally help you get into those. You know, they have if it's a great film, you end up on those lists, and if you're on those lists and the buyers are paying attention, then they start to. It kind of like organically happens.
No, go ahead.
Just to add to that, of course, the ideal situation is we have a sales agent and a publicist, but we didn't have either. So I'm just saying that you can believe in your film and organic growth, because once one person sees it, or like one screening happens, the film will speak for itself. And then buzz is so quick. Believe in word of mouth, believe in the other things, you know. So suppose no one clicks on it before, after the first screening they will if they like it. So
yeah, and Ram said it earlier, and it's just because, can we have the lights up a little bit more? I can't see the faces out there now in the Q&A. If you could just pop up, thanks, Peter. You're here at the Film Bazaar, and there are so many, you know, you have film the viewing room, yours was in works in progress. So really in India right now in this situation, the best person to have a look at your film is Deepti Bakuna. Because she is a curator for so many of these platforms and also does the NFDC Selects, which is another curatorial aspect of the viewing room. So you can reach out to people who are here at home, people who understand what the international market might be looking for, what it's responded to in the past. They also know what's fresh. So understand what's new about your film. Don't imitate TT. Don't imitate the marketing for something that's gone before. We will feel the imitation. But you were in Film Bazaar, and Ram said it right at the beginning, like this was the place where the buzz happened.
You know, to that point, it's important to get to know the programmers or the festival directors, because again, it's all about discovery, and so we're all busy people, we don't all have time to watch 100 films or read 100 press kits, so we go to our friends who are the festival director or the programmer and say, what have you heard that's showing here that's really something special to watch? And if they believe in your film and they believe in you, they'll tell you, check out these 5 films. There may be others, but check out these 5. You have to see them.
So if you feel a lot from the festival, they help a lot. Even within the premiere and the screening, they help a lot to push people to look at it, press kits, your work, your film, everything.
And just one thing, and I think we have to wind up because you're going straight into the next session about festivals. Is that right, Anupama? How perfect, with Deepti moderating. I'd forgotten that, but yeah, coincidentally, these guys are up next. But one thing you all have is you have films from the subcontinent. And this is an asset. Where I travel, I'm talking about Dutch films. That's a much harder sell because we have Danish films up the road, we have Belgian films down there, we've got German films over our shoulder. So there's a sort of massive Europeanness that I'm struggling to get attention for Dutch films. Indian film is hot again. There was a time where it wasn't, but the Film Bazaar has played a role in this. Great filmmakers have played the most significant role in this because they've made really beautiful, credible works that have gone to the festivals. But until I think Anurag went with his first Cannes film, there hadn't been anything much except a big Bollywood film. Yes, thanks. But you know, now Indian independent cinema, it's back on the map, people are actively looking for it, and if you have that new beautiful subcontinental / Indian film, you're already getting the attention. Just make sure that you have these kinds of images chosen carefully, you hit the tone of the thing with also the images, and yeah, get to know some of the people and get some word of mouth running. That's my last note. Michael?
Also, what Marten wanted to say about Dutch language films is the Dutch language is one of the more difficult languages to listen to. So if you're out there marketing Dutch language films, it's kind of hard sometimes. But he can't say that because he works there.
So
I love the Dutch people though. Anyway.
A small closing note also that I want to say is that making the film and selling the film are two different things, and it's okay to say that. It's okay to admit that. And so you make your film with all your soul, your heart, whatever. You do that in a bubble. Once you've made it, you try and understand, okay, now what do I have as a product? You know, my art has gone into it. What do I have as a product? How can I position this product best? So it starts with the film, and then you can pick festival, sales agent. I mean, not pick, but you create your strategy and you approach them. Now it's important to know that one film with the same content has, I think, 10 different ways of approaching images and you know, your synopsises, etc. And all 10 can be true to the film, but you have to pick the one that's best for the forum that you're going to. So stay true to your film, but tailor it to the forum. So, you know, we had two very different synopsises for Indian festivals and for foreign festivals. That's fine. So stay true to your film, but it's very important to try and understand the audience, take help from people in Film Bazaar, and then tailor it, you know. Make sure you make that effort.
And the people who we able to, you'll get a sense of who they are now because festivals are run by human beings and they have different spirit, energy. Coming up soon, you're going to have Deepti Takula from India, Marco Muller, Cameron Bailey, Carlo Bertolin, Dorothy Benner, Sergio Font, and Christian Jean. These are all amazing human beings. You'll get a sense of who they are, and you'll also get a sense of maybe this is the one that will respond to my film. That's my wind-up. Are we good? Time down?
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much, Ram. And thank you everybody here for being part of this session.